I tell my clients, we only really have 4 options: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's what our nervous system is telling us, because when we're in that survival mode, which is what's triggered when we're anxious and overwhelmed and trying to push forward, we have 4 options to choose from. But when we're in that place of stillness and quiet, just like your son experienced, all of a sudden, it's like possibilities open up that we didn't see before.
Hello and welcome to Millionaire in the Making. This is the show where we pull back the curtain on a business owner's journey to $1 million. We are having people who are all over the span, whether they're under 100K, over 100K, have hit $1 million or 2 million and beyond. The mindsets, the beliefs, the work, the things that they had to do to get to where they are today. And today I have Misty Springer on with me. Misty, thank you so much for being here today. I'm just going to share a little bit about Misty, and then I'm going to have her open it up and tell us a little bit more. And this is going to be an awesome interview. I'm so excited to have Misty. Misty and I have known each other for, I was calculating today, Misty, 10 years. 2016 to 2017, I think, is when we first met. And it's been a beautiful journey. Misty and I have hosted retreats together. I have done some programs of Misty's, and she has been such a major influence in my life and the way that I work. So I'm excited for you to hear more about her. But Misty is a master coach who helps high-performing leaders align with their inner wisdom so they can lead from peace, not pressure. With a background in somatic coaching, breathwork, and mindfulness, Misty blends nervous system regulation with deep personal insight to help leaders release what is holding them back and step into their next level with calm clarity. Misty, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you on here. You, like I said, you've been just such a blessing and a big influence in my life. But for those people who don't know you, just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great. I'm so excited to be here with you, Cheree. Like you said, I can't believe that it's been that long. It feels like the time has flown by, but then I look back at where we were both in 2016 and where we are now, and there's been a lot of growth for both of us, and it's been fun to be on this journey with you. And I have loved the retreats that we have done together, and that's been a huge blessing in my life as well, is just to be able to facilitate that space for women and men and helping them step into that next level of leadership, whether that's in their life or in their business. We've done a little bit of both. So it's been fantastic. And yeah, I was contemplating on that's always the loaded question, right? Like, what do I do? How do I answer that question? And I am a transformational coach. I work one-on-one with clients who are really ready to step into that next level for themselves. This is not about fixing, it's about stepping into what's possible and seeing beyond what we've currently created into what's next and what we can continue to create in the life that we want. And sometimes that includes business, sometimes that includes life and business. It's all of it combined. But I also facilitate retreats. I do breath work and somatic work. And the retreat experience, I would say, what I specialize in is creating an embodied experience. So I often will be brought into a retreat setting to create an embodied experience of the learning that, the topic that is being discussed, or create an experience where the participants are not just getting the information in their mind, but dropping it into their body and heart so that they are becoming something different, not just learning something different.
Oh gosh. And we have a retreat coming up this fall for business owners who are 3 million plus in revenue. And Misty, Tyler Dickerhoof, who was on our last show, is going to be there as well. Misty is going to be there throughout the whole thing. And I think one of the things that I have learned the most in business, part of my own work and my background, and then also just kind of learning from you and to experience what you do, Misty, is I think as high performers, as business owners, we get so stuck in the logic and in our head that we forget how to listen and tune in to our own intuition. And the more I work with people, the more that I realize that. And for me, I kept thinking like, oh, if I just invest in the right marketing strategy, or if I just invest in the right thing, right? But as I have done work with you and, done more internal belief work and focused more on that and less on the, how do I get the perfect marketing strategy or the perfect messaging? The marketing and the messaging has come along the way. And you've just been such a big influence on that and really giving me the tools and teaching me and other people how to calm our nervous system down so that we can move forward in the things that we want to. Misty, before we get too far ahead, I forgot to ask you, I always ask every guest on here where they're at in business, whether they're at under 100K, over 100K, or $1 million plus. Because I think that gives people a really good idea of kind of where did you start? Where are you at now? I think it's really important to get a behind the scenes, especially as coaches, because what I find is like bookkeepers, marketing agencies, they grow super fast because everybody wants their services and it's really easy for them to scale and grow really quickly. For coaches, I think it's harder and you really have to be in it for the long game. And as you grow, right, you add more services and do more things. And so for me, I've been a business owner for 10 years. I started a gift box company. I did that for 3 years. I wasn't seeing the financial success I wanted. And then I moved into coaching thinking, oh, well, this will be easier because it's service and there's no inventory, right? It still took me a long time. And part of that is just figuring out who am I? Who can I best serve? But it was also overcoming a lot of limiting beliefs. And I think on social media, you hear from these coaches of, oh, I made 6 figures this month. And it's like, yeah, but you don't see all the behind the scenes of the team that they have hired. And yes, they may have brought in, 100,000 in revenue in 1 month, but they also probably spent that, if not more. And so what I love about you is you just have a really simple approach. Like you don't do all the fancy bells and whistles and you're extremely successful. I know you're successful as a coach and what that means for you. So just tell us kind of where you're at on that spectrum and then we'll kind of go from there.
I love that. I love the question because, and we don't need to go into it here and can go into it later in the show because it is a huge part of my story. Because defining success for me and stepping out of that industry comparison and this is what I should be doing, this is what I should be making, or this defines me as a successful coach. It's been a huge part of my journey and continues to be. And I think that we do a disservice in not talking about behind the scenes, in just talking about I'm making X amount of money. Well, what does that mean? And how have you gotten there? And what's the process that it took to get there? So I'm currently sitting right around 100K. And that for me feels highly successful. And my life is highly successful. But it has taken me a long time to be in a place where I feel successful in what I do. And it's taken me a lot of introspection. And I think that that's probably been the biggest growth journey for me in what is success. And I love this podcast because it is all about what is success and how do you define that for yourself.
Yeah. I think we're going to go there because I think that's such an important topic of what does success mean to you? I was just talking to somebody recently and they said, yeah, I hired people and I realized that I actually don't really love that. I don't love managing people. That felt stressful, right? And so success, it's not a money number. And yes, this is millionaire in the making, and that's one of my goals is to be a millionaire, but it's no longer about the number, like once I hit $1 million, then I'll be successful. It's more about, I just feel like that's something that God has really like deeply ingrained in my heart. And also that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm burning myself to the ground. There's a lot of different ways to get to be a millionaire, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily in business revenue. And so getting really clear on what's important to you. And Misty, I know you're a mom of 4, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that you kind of had a journey where you kind of played into that, not played into, but like almost that burnout. And then your daughter had a health issue and you kind of had to pull back, right? Kind of just your journey. Where did you start? Roughly 10 years ago, and kind of what have you kind of gone through and what has changed of how you define success?
Yeah, I would love to. And it's been a journey of identity for me, honestly. I started out as a health coach. I had been a mental health therapist, and then I moved into the health coaching field because I wanted the flexibility and I wanted to be working with people who were wanting something better for their life and wanting to create something more. When I began this journey, it felt almost more like a hobby. Honestly, I started it out feeling like, oh, this would be great. My kids were young. This was about 14 years ago. My kids were really young at the time, and I was in the midst of mothering and preschool drop off and elementary school volunteering. And so it worked well for a while. And then what I noticed was that it started to get the message that it wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. That what I was doing was, if I were really growing, if I were really successful, my business would look like X, Y, and Z. I would have X number of clients. I would make X number of amount of money. That once I hit that amount, then it was like, oh, but that's not enough. Yeah. Now you need to have X number of clients and X amount of money, because then you're actually really growing, and you haven't really grown or reached your potential unless you keep pushing and keep getting bigger and keep growing. And so I really bought into that. That was kind of the standard that I had always lived by. I was a high achiever. I had run marathons. I had set goals for myself and achieved them. And so this just felt kind of like a no-brainer. Like, okay, I'm just going to set this goal, and I'm going to put this amount of money that I want to make, and I'm going to put this number on the clients that I want to make. And what I discovered was that it was like all of a sudden everything stopped. When I first started my business, I would literally say, you know what, I think I can handle 8 clients. And one client would drop off, and I would, like, magically, did no marketing, nothing. Magically, another client would just drop in. And it was just like, oh, okay, that's just how it works. But when I started to be so hyper-focused on the number of clients I had and what that meant to my identity and my worthiness and my success, everything sort of froze. Mm-hmm. And I remember the frustration, the head banging against the wall. Like, what is wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Why isn't this working? Why can I look at everybody else? And that's the issue, right? Is we look at everybody else and we think they're doing X, Y, or Z. Why is it that they can do it and I can't? What's wrong? Right? And that really, it ate at me. And so one of the things that I think has been the biggest realization for me on this journey, I talk a lot about our true desire, and that we often have a goal. And that goal for me at the time was, I want to make this amount of money in my business. I want to make 100K because that means I'm successful, right? That was the industry standard. That means I'm a successful coach. And when I stood back and recognized, okay, that's the goal, but what's the true desire behind it? The true desire was that I wanted to feel successful. I wanted to feel worthy. I wanted to feel certain in myself. I wanted to feel like my business mattered, that people's lives were impacted. And I was putting a number on that and saying, all of that's going to come when I hit this magical number. And what I discovered was that God always answers our prayers, that He sometimes answers them from our true desire. So in that process, giving me a certain number, an income, was not the way that I was going to learn how to feel worthy, regardless, to feel confident, regardless, to feel that I was successful in changing lives, regardless, to have confidence in myself instead of a number. That's what really shifted for me when I started to look at where I was already worthy, where I was already confident, where I was already impacting lives. That's when the number became less important. Of course, it's like a cherry on top. It is important. We have bills to pay and we have things that our business provides, but it can't provide our worthiness.
Yes. The identity and the worthiness, like for high performers, there's so much wrapped up in that of once I get to this number, then I'll feel worthy. Then I can take care of myself, or, and that was me too. And so it was like constantly feeling like a failure because I was never hitting the number. Misty, I want to ask, so you transitioned, you were like, yeah, I had 8 clients consistently. Like, it wasn't a problem. I wasn't even having to try, right? And then all of a sudden you're trying and everything just stops. And I tell my clients this all the time. When it comes to money, if you want something so desperately, right? It's like if you're in the desert and you're so thirsty and you see a hose of water and you're like, come out, water, right? Like, come out. And you're gripping it so hard, nothing can come out. But as soon as you surrender and you let go and you release, then that water can flow. And the same is true in our business. And I think people put so much pressure on themselves to perform. And what they don't realize is it's actually restricting the results that they're going to see. And if they just let go, I actually just had a client. We were kind of going through just energy wise, like where are you spending your time and energy? What's stealing your energy? And one of the things was filling out her KPIs and her metrics. And I was like, I just want you to let that go. I just temporarily, doesn't have to be forever, but I want you to just let it go. Just stop worrying about that and just focus on investing in people and the impact that you want to have. And we were just on a call yesterday, and in the last month, she all of a sudden has all these leads coming in, right? That she's just like, I don't know, the floodgates just opened. And I think we can get so stuck on the numbers and the stride, and those things are important, especially if you're in a huge organization, right? Like you have to have metrics to track, but that's not necessarily true for all businesses. And I think especially for coaches and sales, sometimes it actually is more restrictive than it is helpful. So I love your story in this. I want to hear kind of what did you feel when you made that shift to, okay, I'm going to focus on the number and that comparison. What did you feel in your body?
It was 100% the restriction. I remember distinctly an experience. I had a consult with a new potential client, and she was going to get back to me over the weekend. And I was spending time with my extended family that weekend. And I remember just feeling so worried and so I couldn't be present with my family because I was like, is she going to sign? Is this going to be the next client that I have? And I was so hyper focused on the result that I couldn't just be present, and I couldn't just live in the moment, which was a really great contrast for me. I'm grateful for that experience because what it showed me is that this is not what I want. This is not how I want my business to be. I want it to be something that feels purposeful and meaningful and impactful for my life and others. I want to serve. I want to be an instrument in God's hands. I want to help others find the potential within themselves. I don't want to feel like I'm hyper focused every second of the day and checking my email. But that constriction in my body, you're absolutely right. It feels like that hold on the hose, and that the difference when I surrendered, and that plays into the story I realized I never got back to about my daughter. That was, again, an opportunity that God answers our prayers in our true desire, because I had to let go. I had to surrender. My daughter was her first year away at school, and in her first year, she got extremely sick. She was 8 hours away, and I was driving back and forth, trying to take care of her, trying to meet her needs, and also had all of my kids at home while running a business. And I realized that I couldn't put the same amount of energy. It was the energy that I was giving to my business that felt out of balance. It felt like all of my attention and thought and energy was going into how can I grow the business? How can I get more clients? How can I market better? What's the right strategy? What am I doing wrong? And that consumed so much of my time and my energy that I realized if I were going to take care of my daughter in the way that I wanted to and to be there for her in the way that I wanted to, I couldn't put that same amount of energy into my business that I had been. So it was a true surrender. And I remember the moment where I went and I literally talked with God, and I was like, I know that this is something I'm meant to be doing. That's what has kept me in this business for 14 years, is that I truly know that I am meant to do this work. I'm meant to work with the women that come into my life and the men that come into my life. I'm meant to do this. So, God, I can't continue at the pace that I'm going. I can't continue at the energy output that I'm putting in and take care of my daughter, which is also like the most important priority for me. And so I surrender. Like I need to look at this different. I need to have a different experience. And in that month, when I let go, when I surrendered, I had my highest revenue month per date and to date, and it continued. I was able to take care of her. I was doing less than half of what I had been doing before. And yet my numbers increased. They doubled. In fact, I think they almost tripled. I think if I'm remembering correctly, this was several years ago. I think they tripled the income that month, which was a very different experience for me at the time. And so it was as if God was saying, just let go. Let go. I've got you. And, as a high performer and as somebody who has always created results for myself, that was a totally new concept and something that was really beautiful and something that I needed.
I love that. You said I was used to creating results for myself. Like all of the work is on you. You have to do it all. And when you release that pressure off of yourself, it's amazing what becomes of that. And the shift in how you feel too, right? From that, I don't know, for me, it was like, I was just constantly anxious and overwhelmed and not really exhausted, but just, and part of that was because I had learned self-care, right? I learned what I needed and how to take care of myself, but I still had this presence of this anxiety and overwhelm and this constant need to be achieving or doing. And it's so hard as high performers to be still because it means we're not in control, right? That surrender. And I have that conversation with clients a lot. And that's the biggest thing, right? Whether it's around money scarcity or performance metrics or whatever it is, that not feeling like you're in control of the situation, that's really hard. It's really scary. And I know for me, breath work that I've done with you has been a huge piece of that for me, because I was doing other things, right? I was journaling, I was doing visualization, I was doing my prayer, like I was doing those things. And it wasn't until I experienced your breath work. I had done other breath work in the past, right? Which was more focused on like technique and the breath, but the breath work you do is very experiential in it's just a different, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a different level. And when we first started, it was not easy. I had a really hard time with it. I felt pain in my body. There was anxiousness. It was also like I would get to the end and I was like, oh my gosh, I need more of this calm and peace in my life. And the more I did that, the better it got. And I was just sharing this story. For years, I had the goal of, I want 10 clients per month, right? That was my goal. And yet it felt overwhelming. It felt hard. I didn't feel like I had the capacity. And so I just started doing like a recording of your breath work every day with that intention of like, I want 10 clients per month. Like that feels good. I know I have the capacity and yet my body is telling me I don't, right? And so I did breath work, and eventually it was like, okay, that was really easy. And I stopped chasing it. Like I let it go, and I was like, okay, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, right? I'm going to stop chasing for it. And now I'm at 15 clients per month, and I just opened another 3 spots, and it feels good. Like it doesn't feel hard. It doesn't feel overwhelming. And I think that's just the power of the surrender, which requires some surrender, right? To do breath work, to stop and to be still and not to chase. And, belief wise, like for me, that's surrendering God. For people that are listening to this, if you don't have that relationship with God, it doesn't mean that you can't surrender. But I do think there is a power in being able to surrender to a higher power, right? Because then you release that burden off of yourself. And that's hard to do when you don't have somebody else to put it on. And I think a lot of times what happens is we end up putting it on the people in our lives or on ourselves, right? And it starts to affect our relationships. So I just had to share that because I was very resistant to breath work, and you know this, but I trust you, and we've done lots of work and retreats and different things together. And so you created that safety for me, that I was like, okay, this is safe. I feel okay with this. And my body was able to let go. And I very rarely feel anxious or overwhelmed anymore. And if I do breath work. So because the breath work is new for you in the last couple of years, what made you decide like, okay, I need to add this into my practice and the work that I do?
Well, thank you. First of all, that is such a beautiful testament to the power of breath work. And also, I just have to speak to the power of your own wisdom. That's really what you're accessing when you're letting go. The wisdom that comes not from like, it's different. It's not the like results driven. I've always kind of figured things out on my own. That's not the kind of wisdom I'm talking about. I think it's the wisdom that comes from the truth of who you are. It comes from that deep sense of purpose and meaning and connection with something greater than yourself. And I work with clients who have no belief in God. I work with clients who have a very foundational belief in God. But what I have come to know is that if we continue to put our faith and trust only in ourselves, we can only go so far, because we have let ourselves down over and over and over again. And so it's really hard to put our trust and belief in something that feels tentative. And we can continue to build that belief. And of course, that's the work that we do. We wouldn't be in the coaching industry if we didn't believe in the potential to break beyond beliefs and grow. And what I do know is that there are answers in the stillness that we will get in no other way. That's the craving that we feel to be still, is a craving for our own internal guidance system that is unique to our success. That's where we define success, from the inside out, not from looking at the industry standard or what everybody else is doing or what's working for them. It is coming into our own space of truth, connecting with something greater than ourselves and moving forward from that path. And that's honestly, if I were to sum up breathwork and the breathwork experience that I feel called to create, it is that. Yeah. It is literally creating a space for you to connect with the wisdom and a source that's greater than you, to create a pathway forward and to know what that next step is that feels safe in your body, and creating a safe space to do that. So I had been on this journey for just defining who I was as a coach and what my specific talents and gifts were as a coach. I think we all do that. And I think that that's where, when we start to land in that place that feels like it's home, like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing. These are the gifts that I have to share. For me, it was combining the mind, the body, and the heart. I had talked pretty much since day one of my coaching. I recognized that we are a whole person. It's not just our mind. We can't just change our thoughts. And we are a body and a heart as well. And when we get all three, when we get a green light in the mind, the body, and the heart, that's when we move forward. When it feels like the mind is fighting against the body, that's when we feel stuck. That's when we feel uncertain or unsure. And so oftentimes I work from the inside out, which means that we're working from the body and the heart, changing the state. When we change our state, then we can change the story in our brain. But if we try to just change the story, yell positive affirmations at ourselves in the mirror, sometimes they don't feel like they land, right? So I had been really studying, and I recognized that my clients were, if we just stayed in the mind, if I just gave them the information, if it was just like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it, right, I could give them the information, and, willpower lasts for about 2 weeks, maybe 2 months. Yes. And so they would make changes, feel really good about themselves, and then fall right back into old patterns and old behaviors. And so I recognized, okay, we're working with the mind. I had a good understanding of the body and how the body works, but what's missing here? I wasn't interested in short-term fixes. I was interested in long-term transformation. And that includes the heart. That's where I feel breath work can get to that nothing else can. The language of our mind is our thoughts, the words that we speak. The language of our body is the sensations that we have, the feelings, the symptoms that we have, even the pain that we experience. But the language of our heart is our beliefs. And oftentimes, 95% of our beliefs are subconscious. We're not even aware of them. So how do we change or shift something that we're not even aware of? We have to drop into the heart. We have to drop into a place where the subconscious is aware of those beliefs, even when our conscious mind is not. And so as I discovered breath work, and I discovered that breath work was a way to not only access those beliefs and become aware of them, but to literally shift those beliefs. Shift a limiting belief into an empowered belief in the body, in real time. That we could do that and create a transformational experience in one session that used to take me years to do with a client if we were just working with the mind. That experience, along with quite literally just being open to exactly what I said, following my own internal wisdom and connecting with something greater than myself, which is God for me, I feel like it's really been a honing of my practice because, like you mentioned, Cheree, I do it a little differently. Yes. And so it's a little bit of a different experience than typical breathwork. Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. I just had you on for my clients, and a lot of them were like, wow, that was like the most peaceful I've felt in a really long time, or like I'm calm and I'm relaxed. And for high performers, that's not a normal sensation. Like high performers do not experience a lot of peace or relaxation. Like it's like we don't know how, right? And so, yeah, your breath work has been amazing for that. It's funny because you were saying, the stillness and the quiet, and my youngest, just the other day, he was like, he's in the middle of writing a book. He's really into fantasy. And so he's writing this fantasy book, and he a lot of times he'll wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. He'll get his schoolwork done, like his normal schoolwork, and then he'll go back to sleep for a couple hours. And he was like, Mom, while I was sleeping, I had all of these ideas for my book. Why? And I said, and he's used to, like, he always has like music or a podcast or an audiobook. Like he's always listening to something, right? And I said, that's why it's really important to tune out the noise of the stuff. And that's why I tell you it's good to be bored, because that's the only time your brain can be creative and receive new ideas, is if you allow it to be still and to be quiet. And he goes, huh.
kind of like this light bulb moment for him because I get so tired of me telling him like, you need to be bored. It's good to be bored, right? And so for him, he experienced that in real time. And that's true for us as entrepreneurs too. We get so stuck in the busy, the doing, that if you just be still and you allow stillness, that's actually where the most creative ideas and the ideas that don't have to be forced. In last July, June, July-ish, I had been doing breath work, journaling, visualization pretty consistently. And I just had this idea. I just was like, I just really feel like I need to put this offer out for $150 a month, a 12-month coaching membership, which is way less than I normally charge. But I was like, I'm just going to put it out there. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's the right thing. And those 3 offers filled up in 3 days. And that ended up turning into a massive momentum that ended up creating like $10,000 in a month, all because I put out this one tiny offer that didn't logically make sense. Like, you know, as a coach, charging $150 a month is very little. And even I wouldn't normally tell a client to do that, right? But I was like, I don't know what it is. I just know that it is what it is. And I just launched yesterday, I put out a similar offer because I felt the same thing. I was like, I don't know why, I don't know what it is. I'm just going to put it out there and I'm going to trust that that's the right thing. And that's the power of stillness and that inner wisdom, intuition. It doesn't always make logical sense, but it will never, ever steer you wrong.
Exactly. And I think that I love that example, Cheree, because like you mentioned, several of your high-performing clients were saying, it's been a long time since I felt that peace, or rarely have I felt that peace. And yet there is a craving for it.
Yeah.
And that craving is like your potential. The craving is what is possible. When we're stuck in our nervous system being activated, or that anxiousness or that overwhelm or that high performance that I've just got to achieve, even if that achievement has driven us in other areas to success, that feeling, when we're talking about creation and creating something new, which is what we are doing in our lives, in our businesses, we are stepping into something new all the time. We're in this constricted, anxious, overwhelmed, gotta do, gotta perform place, our options are so limited. We can only see, I tell my clients, we only really have 4 options: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's what our nervous system is telling us, because when we're in that survival mode, which is what's triggered when we're anxious and overwhelmed and trying to push forward, we have 4 options to choose from. But when we're in that place of stillness and quiet, just like your son experienced, all of a sudden, it's like possibilities open up that we didn't see before. And that's where I love to work. We can work in the field of predictability, which is, I did X, Y, and Z in the past, so that means I can do this in the future, right? That field of predictability feels very safe and very secure because that's where control lives, right? I know I can do this because that's what I've done before. But it's also our limits. It's the limitation that we're bumping up against. We can only see as far as what we've done in the past. We can only see what's predictable. What I want to step into is what is possible. The field of possibility, the field of potentiality, that field that feels like miracles. I call it the miracle frequency. And that's what you tap into when you're dropping into that place of stillness and quiet. You're thinking greater than your own mind. You're stepping into a field of possibility that is becoming real because you're experiencing it in your body. And you're becoming something different as you experience it in your body in real time.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I know we are just about out of time. I feel like we've pretty much gone through most of it. But a couple questions that my listeners have asked is, How did you stop caring what others think, especially when your vision felt unrealistic?
That's such a good one. Such a good question. I think it comes back to that question of identity. I, for a long time, was trying to fit a mold of what a coach should look like. Even when I felt like I was trying to be, just be authentic online. And I thought that authentic meant loud and doing reels online. And, that's what I felt like. Well, when people say they're just like, let all your insecurities go and just be you online. And I thought that meant, oh, that means I have to be loud and really boisterous. And that is not who I am.
No, not at all.
So it was an acceptance that my resistance to that was not a limitation. That wasn't a limiting belief. It was just literally out of alignment with who I truly was. And the other place for me personally, and again, I work with clients that are all across the board in their belief in God, but I had to own my belief in God. It's a huge part of who I am. It's a huge part of my personal identity. And I love that there is space and we're opening up space for everyone to have their own relationship with the divine, whatever that means. But for me personally, I couldn't keep trying to stuff it under the rug, trying to fit into a mold that I thought a coach should be. So what I had to let go of was my own belief in what being me meant. Like I really had to get to know and be okay showing up as me. And the more that I do that, and the more that I step into that part of me, the easier it all is. And the clients that I want to work with just to come into my world in a really beautiful way. I love the clients that I work with, the people that I get to interact with. It's a joy.
And that right there is success without sacrifice, my friends. I love that. Thank you so much, Misty, for just sharing your story, for being here, for being a light in my life and other people's lives. If you guys have any comments, you want to connect with Misty, tell everyone what's the best way to connect with you if they want to experience breath work or coaching with you. How can they find you?
Absolutely. So I would say the number one place to experience breath work is on my podcast. My podcast, Aligned Heart. I teach a personal development or success principle in the first episode of the podcast, and then I record a second podcast that accompanies that is an embodiment breathwork exercise. So you can experience and bring the learning from your head into your heart and body, and you can access. I think I have well over 60 meditations / breathwork sessions on that platform that you can just access and try out. So that would be a good place to experience the breathwork. And if you want to get in touch with me, my website is a great place to go, mistyspringer.com, or connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Misty Springer Coaching. And send me a message. Would love to hear anything, any questions you have, or anything that stood out to you in any way. I would love to connect.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, for listening, for giving your time today. I hope that you walk away with a message that you get to decide what success looks like for you, not what everybody else defines as success. Also, that stillness and peace are possible for you as a high performer, and not only possible, but will help you reach that potentiality is the word that you use, Misty, that I love. So thank you all so much for being here today, and we will be back next time.